Hello and welcome to America in Focus, powered by the Center Square. I'm Dan McCaleb, executive editor of the Center Square Newswire service. Joining me again today is the Center Square's Washington, D.C. bureau chief, Casey Harper. Casey, there's been a lot of hullabaloo. You like that word? It's the best I could come up with.
That's pretty good, Dan. Thanks for that.
About gas stoves and the potential for banning gas stoves in American homes. You've been covering the story really for a few months.
I've been covering the hullabaloo.
The hullabaloo, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
For a few months now. Biden administration officials say they're unhealthy, not good for the environment, not good for individual families, etc. But most Americans don't want their gas stoves taken away from them. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. So there's a couple things going on here. There's a poll release that showed from Harvest Caps Harris. It found that 69% of those surveyed oppose a gas stove ban like this, right? So that includes, of course, it kind of falls along political lines that you might expect. Vast majority of Republicans oppose the ban. Independents are also largely opposed. 71% of independents oppose the gas stove ban or anything like it. And Democrats are pretty split, but even the majority of Democrats do oppose this ban. 55% even of Democrats oppose any kind of gas stove ban. So Republicans, Democrats, and independents all don't like the sound of this. Lawmakers in Congress, they have a bill in the House that, there's a bill to block the federal government from doing a gas stove ban, but whether it would actually get passed in the Senate and whether Biden could get behind signing a piece of legislation that would kind of undermine a regulation that was pushed by his own kind of administration would be interesting. But that bill did pass the House 248 to 180 with bipartisan support. 248 votes is pretty good. So that bill in particular would prevent the Consumer Products Safety Commission, which is, a relevant agency in this case, from using taxpayer dollars to treat gas stoves as a banned hazardous product or put in place any regulations that would effectively make them banned. So that's kind of an interesting detail here is it's not necessarily just that they would write a rule saying gas stoves are now banned. It's that they could do something like making the regulations on gas stoves so elaborate and so strict that they might not be officially banned, but they're practically banned because to keep up with all these regulations, it would make gas stoves prohibitively expensive for most people, right? So that's kind of a way, which is kind of a funny admission by the government that regulations are really costly for businesses and Americans. It can prevent them from doing things they want to do, even if they don't outright ban them. So Americans oppose it. There's a bill that, it's unclear if it will actually get anywhere. Regulations take a really long time to get implemented. They get proposed and they go through a very long rulemaking process. Even after it's passed, Congress has the ability through the Congressional Review Act to repeal it in a potential 2024 Republican Congress and administration. If hypothetically they could repeal something like this, and there might be enough, I think there could really be enough political will to do it because to me, I'd be curious to hear what you think about this, Dan, but to me, people are I've heard so much about this gas stove ban. I think it's kind of an interesting story, but initially I was like, oh, interesting gas stove ban. I don't know what I think about that. That's a little questionable, but I keep hearing about it and people are very upset about it.
Yeah, the story doesn't make sense to me. I've been around for a while.
Yeah.
I wasn't born yesterday, okay? I was born a long time ago.
Right.
My mom had a gas stove when I was growing up. Both of my grandmothers used gas stoves. Everybody I knew had gas stoves. In fact, I used my Google machine here while you were blathering away there. Gas stoves have been in common use since the 1920s. That's 100 years. Mm-hmm. Why all of a sudden are gas stoves this now huge, big?
And why did you have to Google something that happened in the 1920s?
Good one, Casey. I was born a long time ago, not that long ago. I've lived in either owned homes or rented in Pennsylvania, Louisiana, Indiana, now Illinois. For one period, one place that I was at, I had an electric stove and it was I was renting there and it had an electric stove. I was there for about 2 years and absolutely hated it. There's no comparison between electric stoves and gas stoves. And now all of a sudden, gas stoves are evil and we need to get rid of them. I don't get it.
Maybe gas stoves kill brain cells, Dan. I don't know. Maybe that might explain a lot.
I've done plenty of things that killed some brain cells. I don't think gas stoves have anything to do with it.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of got a twofold health and environmental argument behind it, right? They say that gas stoves can cause things like asthma, and then they, talk about the environmental impact of gas stoves and methane. I think Americans, as you said, are in love with their gas stoves, and really what I think is happening here is Americans just do not trust health predictions from the government right now. The federal government has lost a lot of credibility when it comes to health claims. And so to have some vague warning that a gas stove might give you asthma, it's just, I don't think anyone is really concerned or convinced by that. And then there's the third leg of this, of my blathering, Dan, would be just can the federal government even take your gas stoves? It feels pretty invasive to come into my home and tell me what I can cook with, you know?
I've been staring at my watch for the last several minutes there. Casey, you done?
Mm-hmm. I'm done, thankfully.
I am done talking about gas stoves, too. We try and keep opinion to a minimum on American focus, but I feel too strongly about this one. Leave my gas stove alone, please. But we're out of time. For Casey Harper, I'm Dan McCaleb. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.